And welcome everybody to another edition here of the Mass Steel podcast, where of course yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey. We are officially in training camp right now with players pretty much being cleared to resume practicing and stuff. After a week where everybody pretty much had to get tested and stuff, we got some updates from NFL Network as far as like the opt-out clauses right now, as far as when players could opt out as the latest. Looks like they're pushing by Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, with some stipulations being reported from Ian Rapoport and Tom Pelissero. You can follow them on social media, on Twitter, at Rapsheet, and for Tom Pelissero on NFL Network, you can follow him at Tom Pelissero. Hope everyone's doing great so far. Hope everyone's got a chance to see Ben Roethlisberger's throwing session. I know it's got a lot of people feeling good so far right now. But other than that, I think it's a lot of positive. The hype is good so far, even though it's still a lot of unknown with Ben Roethlisberger and his throwing elbow at the age of 38. A lot of questions to be asked and answered, obviously. And pretty much comparing this similarly like a Tommy John surgery when he tore, I think it was like about 3-5 tendons. He was telling Ed Bouchette. We'll get into that in just a moment. But if you guys ever want to follow me on my social media, I can follow on Twitter and Instagram, primarily at Prodigy Richey. For the Mass Steel podcast on Twitter, it is at Mass Steel CGR, at Mass Steel Nation on Instagram. You can also check out all my Mass Steel podcasts after the show is done, after it airs. You can check them out on SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Anchor, which has me on platforms such as Spotify and a lot more other platforms coming up where it's Radio Public, Google Podcasts. I got a lot more platforms I'll get into a little bit later on. But I just want to say thank you very much, everybody, for joining the show right now. As some colleagues of mine, D and Davis, will say, we are in COVID formation, and we indeed are. And right now, you see a lot of people, it's up to like a peak, like over, I want to say it's up to 45 players right now who have been opting out for the season. I know the New England Patriots had a lot of players opt out recently. I mean, when you look at, for a lot of these guys to like be isolating from their families and loved ones, but there's been some stipulations being catered to them where if they feel like a loved one is sick, they could try and work with them on that. But still, the whole goal here outside that, even for the players who decide to go on and play the season, it's just basically common sense right now. And when you look across the sports world from everything that's going in, I got to tell you, I'm like watching all these sports with empty arenas trying to bring in with virtual fans. And you see how that is paying off right now. I think the smartest one is the NBA with virtual teams. I did like a poll last night on Twitter at Mass Steel CGR. Basically, because even got NHL too. They even got like fans virtually from home watch together. I think the biggest difference is NHL. You can see a lot more group of fans watching from their living room. They'll be taking camera shots on there. Or NBA, they're teaming up with Microsoft Teams. Basically, I want to say the similar rule applies. Where we look at it is that it's only one seat per person, just like if you're in an actual live game. No obscenities. I got David Kano. I don't know if I'm saying your last name properly. Is that Kano? If I'm not mistaken, feel free to correct me. But ask me what I think the Steelers' record will be this year. Truthfully, I'm going to tell you right now, Dave, I really think it's going to really depend a lot on Ben Roethlisberger's health. You got a lot of people opting out, but at the end of the day right now, are we going to run into a situation where Ben Roethlisberger, we just don't know yet, like once he gets like on regular 7-on-7 practices or just contact drills, once everything starts to keep up. It's one thing to see him throw freely right now to his teammates. I believe he said he was working out at least like about 2-3 sessions a week, sometimes increasing it a little bit. I mean, obviously, there's been a little bit of hesitation when he's been coming back, and he's definitely made it real clear. I mean, that he does not like being remembered in the image that he was holding his arm, being walked off the field. Obviously, that aided him the wrong way. But I mean, the reality is, when you go for a game of football like this, at age that he is at, that he is pacing himself, I mean, that's just a fact of life. I mean, the only one I can really think were was able to make somewhat of a decent comeback after having throwing elbow, probably Joe Montana. I mean, don't forget, I mean, he still had the years of the bad back injuries on two separate occasions, more in particular, which was aggravated by the Giants and many other teams. But still, I mean, he still went and have a great finish to his career after he won his second Super Bowl. He actually won two more, which was back-to-back right there. And I think for right now with the Steelers, if Ben Roethlisberger was able to be healthy, if he was able to play smart and just see what kind of like characters, the motives, the stuff that we identify Ben Roethlisberger back, is he going to be like still like putting like the pressure on himself where he feels like he's got to make those throws? There's a lot of times like when Mike Pursuit was even saying too, even like when they be losing, he'd be shouldering a lot more of the blame on himself. And I'm not sure if that's always like the healthy thing to do, but I think it's just more about how he's going to trust his teammates real quick. And I really believe, too, once they face up with Lamar Jackson, with a healthy Ben Roethlisberger and the defense they got, I got to believe it's got to be much more different this time around. Because remember, I mean, Roethlisberger's never faced Lamar Jackson in a full 60-minute game. The last time they ever did face each other, he was coming in, subbing in for Joe Flacco late in the game when it was pretty much lost at that point, or they still had like somewhat of a decent chance to try and be in it. I mean, they went on to lose that game in Baltimore, which is the last time the Steelers had victory down there. But I gotta tell you, I mean, for right now, I think the Steelers right now, their window for the winning of games, I mean, with Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to say it, and I'll say it before. I said it before. Because you still got like an NFC East and an AFC South. AFC South, I'm not so worried about. I think the NFC East is like a little bit like where I'm concerned about. I think if anything, they'll probably split in the NFC East. I can see them being like the Washington the Washington football team and the New York Giants. I mean, the questions are going to be like the iffy ones are going to be the Cowboys and the Eagles. I mean, you could probably argue that they could win 3 out of 4 simply because this time around they won't be in Philadelphia this time when they play the Eagles. It'll be their turn in Pittsburgh. And the way the schedule has been going, usually lately with Steelers and Eagles, it's usually every 4 years and it's alternating fields. I mean, the last time they played was in Philadelphia. Don't forget the butt whooping they put on there, only just scoring 3 points. And I think they lost by a 30-plus deficit in that game. I mean, really got embarrassed in there. But again, that's a place like Philadelphia, which is where Steelers really don't do, I mean, around those fans. But I got to tell you, I mean, the Eagles, to their credit, they have had a few upsets in Pittsburgh when playing this team. And I think the last time they ever did upset the Steelers at home in Pittsburgh, I want to go back 20 years ago, and I think that was in 2000, if I am not mistaken. I'll check that out as we go on a little bit longer. I'm going to say at the very minimal between 8 games, no higher than 11 games. And that's where I'm going to give it at, to be honest with you. So I'll say 11-5 to be very generous here, Dave. I mean, that it's going to be kind of like 2014, in my opinion, this season, with the only difference being that you'll be having a lot more of a better defense. Now, the question is, I mean, when you see like the promises this defense has, the potential that it could probably do something for the first time in franchise history, have 50-plus sacks or more for 4 straight seasons. And I think they joined up about 7, 8 other clubs, I believe it was, right there so far, where he had 3 straight seasons. I mean, the only question is, like I said, it's going to come down to discipline right there. But going back to that Philadelphia Eagles stat I mentioned, when's the last time the Eagles got a win when visiting Pittsburgh in this rivalry, you could say? And the last time they did win in Pittsburgh. Yep, that was correct. It was 20 years ago, and that was at old Three Rivers Stadium. Good news, fortunately, the Steelers right now, when playing the Eagles in Heinz Field, they are 2-0 so far. They only had 2 games back in 2004 and 2012. And the Steelers, I mean, I think if anything, that's got to be an encouraging stat right there. One thing I'll be paying attention to. I mean, if you want to put odds or put money on the game, I would definitely tend to look at something like that. Whenever they play home, it's almost pretty much like a higher percentage that they're going to finishing off the deal against like a team like the Eagles, in my opinion. I just feel like right now what you have to get off to like a good start right out of the gate. You cannot afford to be splitting like 2-2 first quarter of the season. I think if they go somewhere like around like a 3-1, or maybe if they're lucky, maybe like a 4-0. I mean, when you look at that first month of the season, you got to start off against the Giants. I mean, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, having your home opener too. By the way, when we look at for this year, I believe it is against Broncos coming up here for 2020. So here we go. Yeah, so it'll be on the road against the Giants, and they'll be hosting the Broncos. That's going to be an interesting matchup right there. That could be a tough matchup in itself. And then they got the Texans at Heinz Field. And then they visit the Titans. So I could probably see a 3-1 start right there. I mean, beating the Giants, Broncos, Texans, but probably being tripped up in Tennessee against the Titans right there. I mean, yeah, you got Ryan Tannehill, but at the same time, too, I mean, you got Derrick Henry, who just received a nice contract, I believe, from the Titans there. I mean, this is a guy right here, I mean, like who helped will this team into the playoffs right here. I mean, Derrick Henry, I mean, he is like the real deal right now as far as like being that horse and someone they haven't had in a while. I mean, when we look at it. And I just got to believe right there, that will probably be the loss. I think they just tend to get a little bit tripped up in there against Tennessee Titans, by the way. Which, by the way, the last time the Steelers have visited the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee, that was back in 2014. They had a victory on that. But, I mean, over the last 20 years, I mean, basically this century, real quick over here. They're 3-4 right there. I think 4-4 at that point when we look at it. So I mean that's decent, but at the same time too, I think the defense. I mean, Mike Tomlin team. I mean, teammates. I mean, who are going to run for a brick wall for this guy. I mean, Tomlin's a great coach, but there are some times where he gets a little bit tripped up sometimes. I could argue that the Tennessee Titans could be a trap game early on in the season, especially being on the road. I mean, that's just my take. So, yeah, 8 between 11 and 5. I'm going to go ahead and give it to them 11-5 this year, as long as they're able to. As long as Ben Roethlisberger is able to trust his teammates, and even Matt Canada too was even suggesting too about doing some like sweeping routes too. I mean, you might see some like more creative like gadget plays, I guess you could say, so to speak. Kind of like how they did with Kevin Wisenhunt, where you'd be seeing like receivers, maybe like a Deontay Johnson or Juju Smith-Schuster, get the ball and do like a jet sweep type of run. I think if anything, that's a good way you could produce with that offense right there. I mean, you got a lot of things going into that. But let's go ahead and get right into more of the news real quick. Again, this is the Mass Steel Podcast. You can follow me on my social media on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. And I also host On Deck on ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. You can also follow me there at On Deck CSR for Twitter and Instagram. We're the Mass Steel Podcast on Twitter. It is different from Instagram. So for Twitter, it is at Mass Steel CJR. And at Instagram, at Mass Steel CJR. So let's get right into it. The Steelers announced that they have released 8 players, which was according to Ed Bouchette of The Athletic. And here are the 8 players that the Steelers have released yesterday, as a matter of fact. Released quarterback J.T. Barrett. Then you also had running back Ralph Webb. Then Christian Montano, offensive lineman, out Tulane. Then you had Quadri Henderson, wide receiver, number 81. Christian Kuntz, linebacker from Duquesne. Dwayne Hendricks, outside linebacker from Pittsburgh. Then you also got safety and defensive tackle Tyree Cannell and Josiah Coatney from Michigan, Ole Mississippi right there. And I think the only one that made sense on there, too, was J.T. Barrett. I mean, I didn't really think he was going to have much of a roster spot on this because right now, I mean, when you look at the quarterback depth chart, I mean, you still got Paxton Lynch on this team, which I would imagine if you're going to come down to him or Devin Hodges, that's going to be ending up on the practice squad this year, in my opinion, or probably being released. I'm not sure if Devin Hodges will be able to survive this year. But then again, too, even though he did start to fizz out towards the end of the year, I mean, say what you will about Duck Hodges right there. Duck Hodges was able to show some mobility right there. He was able to make some quick, smart passes along the way. I mean, he was very vital, when you have struggling Mason Rudolph. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, I still hear the argument when we look back at that Week 16 game against the Jets. Well, it's been a while since Mason Rudolph was starting, and I think the last time he did start was against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Devin Hodges came, I think, in the second half. Mike Thomas said they needed a spark. Remember, his confidence was pretty much shot ever since having that incident with Myles Garrett. And the thing is, too, I mean, when you really look at it and you look at the Steelers team, I mean, the way they're going in at it, I mean, I got to believe they're going to win big this year. I have to believe so because the biggest thing is, too, I mean, we have no idea what the salary cap is going to look like. There's going to be a lot of contracts on the line next season. Maybe a lot of people could be coming back who are on the final years of their deals, or maybe some guys who are franchise tagged. Because you got to believe right now, I mean, they're going to send a message to the NFL and the AFC. They're going to send a message right now. We still got a team. It's here. You're with, like the White Sox said in 2005 here in Chicago. I know it's baseball, different sport, but bear with me. I think the Steelers are going to have the attitude this season of win or die trying. That's going to be my anticipation for this team. You have to think that way, considering the shorthand they're going to be dealt. But I do believe they will manage to find a way to pull together. You have to. I mean, and the only thing is, too, I mean, Cam Hayward, he's a big question mark if he's going to be coming back next year or not. I mean, him and his agent, they didn't feel like any, sign that they were coming anywhere close to a new deal. But then again, like I said, too, I mean, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and their situation with the overall cap room that they have. I mean, basically, let's take a look at it real quick on Spotrac as we look at it. And you look at the top 51 contracts that they do have. I mean, for everything, they got right now just a little over $2.69 million in cap space freed up. Okay? That's for the top 51, the most important contracts. Because remember, keep in mind right now, when you got everyone up to about 90 players you got on this team for this year, they are about 14 million in a hole. So I got to believe right now, like I said, I mean, we look at this team and you got to believe that Colbert and company, along with Omar Khan, they are right now getting ready for who they need to start cutting bait with or who they could reduce. I mean, even if Kevin Colbert, that's another guy too. Will he stick around? Will he come back next season? I still made the case to Bob Pompiani, posing the question to him. Let's just say the Steelers do win the Super Bowl this year. I pose the question, would Kevin Colbert decide to go out and top? And we both definitely could see that happening because, to be honest with you, he's not making any long-term commitments. I mean, they both have a mutual agreement that Colbert's comfortable with the spot, that he likes to go year to year. I mean, he's in the 60s right now. I mean, of course, I mean, you got to believe, too. I mean, he wants to start, selling it with his family. I haven't heard any indication that he would go over with David Tepper and the Panthers. But if they win this, you get a third Super Bowl. I mean, under your belt, at this point and going year to year, I would not be surprised if he decides to just step aside and just walk away. He's earned that right. And you got to believe it's got to be a lot of pressure and stress on him at times. Believe it or not, I mean, he's managing, but still, just go all in on things in our lives that's away from our families. I mean, you got to believe it's got to be taking a toll on him at some point. It has to. I don't care how much, because anything in life, anything you go all in on, you start to feel like a warrior machine at some point. And just going for the everyday grind, the commitment, the sacrifice, managing the time with whatever it is that you do. I just feel that Kevin Colbert right now, he's got a lot of stuff he's going to be juggling. But at the same time, too, I mean, this is their best opportunity right now for a long time. But I do feel like the season right now, after seeing what I'm seeing from other sports, I think they can survive this. I think the money that they'll lose possibly may not be as bad. I'll probably say it'll drop maybe like 10, no more than 20 million bucks. I mean, at that point. And because right now, I mean, if so, I mean, we shall see where that will be. Remember, it's right now the Steelers' cap number, with everything in play here as we look at it for this season, their actual cap number right now for 2020, basically, their adjusted salary cap, I mean, when we look at it, it is about $198.004791 million. So I mean, they're a little close on the cusp of it. But remember, too, don't forget, you also got some cap carryover that rolls over from that when looking at it. There's also going some other news around the league, too. I mean, the Steelers did actually had to add a couple of players. As everyone remembers, that was announced, I think, Sunday or Saturday it was. I mean, in addition to Aaron Springs and Justin Lane that was put on the reserve and COVID-19 list, you also have running back Jalen Samuels and wide receiver James Washington put on there. It was announced yesterday that Aaron Springs, who actually came over from the XFL LA Wildcats, he has been waived by the team for this season. So, I mean, let's get into this more right now, especially with Ben Roethlisberger. Let's get a little clip right now and just keep you a little updated, like, about how he felt as far as, like, this season goes as it pertains real quickly. So let's take a look at that right now. You're listening to the Man of Steel podcast. Here's what Ben Roethlisberger had to say about his throwing arm. Take a listen to this.
My arm feels really, really good. We threw a lot of balls yesterday, and kind of waking up today to see how it was going to feel, and it feels great. And that's kind of what I anticipated, because we've been working more than usual in an off season in terms of throwing. I've put together really a regimen of 2 to 3 days a week of throwing.
And there you have it right there. I mean, 2 to 3 weeks of throwing right there, like I said at the beginning of the show. And, I mean, great to hear that his arm is feeling in much better shape right there. I remember, too, this is also a guy who's been dealing with the pain in his elbow for, like, years, too. He knew that deep down inside. But, I mean, just to at least hear him finally just throwing with a football right there, just gradually building into it. I mean, you got to believe he feels some sort of confidence coming in. And also, too, speaking with Jim Wexell, too, a Steel City insider, by the way. You can follow Jim Wexell on Twitter. You can follow him at Jim Wexell. And when asked about like what he had to say as far as getting a job, I mean, he was also speaking to like with I'm sorry, I met with wide receiver coach Ike Hilliard. He spoke to Ike Hilliard yesterday on Monday, and basically asked him right now because this is a guy who came over from the Washington football team, who had 6 years coaching experience with them for the past 6 seasons. I think he also had like about 12 years playing in the NFL as a receiver. He was also an NFC champion, which came runner up to the Baltimore Ravens back in Super Bowl 35. But basically, asking him as far as getting a job on veteran experience, he said that to some degree, being fortunate enough to play 12 years will help me in terms of how I communicate with how I communicate, how I can detail what I need to detail for each player collectively for the group in terms of nuances of the position. And then also as far as like dealing with a young wide receiver corps, more particularly when you look at guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, he says, we're looking forward to having Juju for a healthy 16 plus. Deontay needs to continue to grow and detail his work and mature and things of that nature. I could go down the list from those two guys to Ryan Switzer, Chase Claypool, all the guys in the room. I think everyone will be pleased if I can get the most out of those players and we see continuous growth and quote. So there you have it right there. I mean, he's going to be coming in right there. I mean, a year after Daryl Drake and then one guy they had from 1998, I forget his name. But anyway, so he's going to be coming in right there. I'd be interested to see how he works with them this year. I think that is going to be a very key thing because I think definitely the presence of Daryl Drake last season was definitely missed by the Steelers team. So I think that is going to be a huge move right there. A void that definitely needed to be filled right there, and someone that can relate to current players. Also, Missy Matthews reported that the Steelers have signed safety Curtis Riley to a one-year deal. Curtis Riley, by the way, who actually joins the team, he right now, for the moment, when we look at his standing, he comes out of Fresno State as a safety and has been having 6 years played in the league. So, I mean, you got to believe, too, the safety depth right now is definitely a little thin as we take a look at the Steelers' depth chart going into this season. Because, remember, I think that's definitely one thing you got to pay attention to. You don't want to fall asleep on. I mean, obviously, you still got Mika Fitzpatrick. But as far as right now, the defense in that regard, too, when we look at it, I mean, you already got Marcus Allen backing up Mika Fitzpatrick for the free safety role. Then you got Terrell Owens and Jordan Dangerfield. So right here, I think he's more for the depth behind those guys coming as a strong safety. So we'll find out how he's able to do on that. Riley, he signed with the Tennessee Titans as an undrafted rookie free agent out of Fresno following the 2015 draft. And Teresa Varley, who can be followed on Twitter at Teresa_Varley, who's a writer for Steelers.com. I spent a season on the Titans practice squad during the 2016 season. He played in 7 games for the Titans 2017, recording 12 tackles, 1 interception, 2 pass defenses. Don't forget the Tennessee Titans did make the playoffs that year. They knocked off Alex Smith and the Kansas City Chiefs in the wild card round before going on to lose to the Patriots that year. So they had one pretty heck of a year right there. And I got to believe he was definitely a key player in that. And then switching back over things with Ben Roethlisberger right now, I mean, being asked by Ed Bouchette, any competitor will tell you they want to go on their own terms. I mean, not having the image of him being like walking with holding his arm in pain. He also goes on to say, too, I still want to win Lombardies, the plural Lombardi. So Lombardies. And right now, so we'll see how this goes. But also, too, here's some more interesting things, too. Let's switch things back to around the league. Mike Florio, a Pro Football Talk, said that the league's position for this year is that the money, whether $150,000 for no questions asked, opt-outs, or $350,000 for higher-risk players is owed to the team in 2021 if the player doesn't make the team. I mean, so that's a real interesting scenario right there. I mean, you're going to give these guys like a portion of their money to advance. But still, I mean, if they don't make the team the following year, most likely they're going to have to owe money back. So, for example, an undrafted rookie who qualifies for $350,000 stipend, who's opt out, he collects money, then he fails to make it to the 53-man roster in 2021. That player will have to owe that money, that $350,000, to his former team. Then also, too, Ian Rapoport and Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, as far as revisions to the CBA's pandemic, which was finalized by the NFL and NFLPA last night. So basically, we have fines of $50,000 for refusing a COVID-19 test, an opt-out deadline of Thursday, which is, I believe, is by 4 p.m. Eastern time, and then bring a player off the practice squad 90 minutes before the game. And that's what we're going to be having right there. And that's all we got today for the Man of Steel podcast. I'm skipping fair or foul. So just want to keep everyone in the loop of what's been happening. Remember, you can also listen to Steel Nation Radio Network coverage. I believe they are on for 11 hours a day from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken. You do so by checking out the Steelers insert app right there. I mean, which, by the way, have a lot of good guests on there. You hear a lot of stuff from the WDVE right there. I mean, Mike Purcell and, of course, Dale, a lot of them. And, of course, Jim Wuxo, I believe, is on there occasionally. And then I believe Tunch Wolf right now is on there during this time. But anyway, like I said, that's going to do it for a wrap for today's show. Like I said, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm feeling real good right now about the NFL season. I'm feeling good about training camp. I know it's still a mess. I mean, a lot of sacrifice these guys are making, but still, I got a good feeling that everything's going to work itself out. It's going to definitely be for hell and high water what these players are being asked. I mean, which is a little bit of a hypocritical note, but still, I feel like when you look at the current sports right now as they are, more particularly like NBA and NHL, you got to be encouraged by somewhat. The only question is right now, choosing not to have a bubble environment because just be so many players, you would have to accommodate right there. And how you're going to do that, and how you're going to keep these guys in separate like rooms, like designated to them, or more situations that we are learning throughout all this. I think those are going to definitely be the interesting things that come in the equation. Let's wait and see on that. But like I said, I definitely feel like right now we're in a good spot right now. So this is a Man of Steel podcast. Again, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. For the Man of Steel podcast on Twitter, it is at Man of Steel CJR, at Man of Steel Nation on Instagram. And as I always say, don't be trolling, be rolling. We gone.